Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar. I'm Corinne Bonevité from the marketing team of ILX Group, and I'm here today with Joe French, lead trainer. So Joe, you are going to walk us through a comparison of PRINCE2 Agile and Agile PM, right?
Right, yes, thanks Corinne, thanks for that introduction. So welcome to our webinar of PRINCE2 Agile versus Agile PM. I'm Joe French. I'm going to be talking you through these two products over the next 40 minutes or so. So just a little bit about me then. So as you can see, I'm actually the lead trainer for Agile Project Management with ILX. I'm also a PRINCE2 Agile trainer. I've been doing PRINCE2 for 10 years, as well as various other products, as you can see. And I was involved to some extent in the creation of the PRINCE2 Agile manual as an advisor and collaborator. So my background before I got into training and consultancy is in IT project delivery, both Agile and non-Agile forms of working. And I'm a member of the DSDM consortium, who are the people who own the Agile PM guidance. Okay, so hopefully you can see from this that I am quite sort of in amongst it. There aren't so many people in the Agile world, it has to be said, who really get PRINCE2, so hopefully I can bring that to the party as well. Oh yes, and I'm also a qualified blues harmonica tutor, so if anybody wants to understand how to bend their draw 4 reed, you should come to me as well. Okay, anyway, let's crack on with this. A little bit about ILX then. So ILX, as you can see from the slide, we're quite a major player in the whole area of learning, both classroom and e-learning and blended learning, which is a cross between the two. And as you can see, we've provided best practice learning, including various forms of project and program management training to 250,000 people over all those organisations in quite a few countries of the world. Yeah, so major player, and especially major player in PRINCE2 training. Okay, so let's talk about this contest then. So, bit of a clash of the titans, this, bit of an Ali versus Foreman, or as it would seem to be in this slide, Godzilla versus King Kong. Okay, this is a clash of the titans. These are two quite major pieces of guidance that have been made available to us. So unfortunately, I can't guarantee any Japanese cities being destroyed or people sitting on the top of an Empire State Building with biplanes flying around their ears, but hopefully we'll understand a little bit about the differences between these two products. I should also give you a spoiler alert that at the end of this presentation, I'm not going to be holding aloft the boxing gloved hand of one of the two and say this one is the winner, because the fact is it depends. They have both of them pros and cons. Okay, so we'll get onto that later. Okay, so the objectives of this session then. So obviously the main one is to try and compare and contrast PRINCE2 Agile and Agile PM. As an organisation, we're experiencing quite a bit of confusion in the marketplace. People saying they don't know which way to jump. You know, seemingly these are two areas quite similar to each other. So I've done the work. I've looked into both of them on your behalf. So hopefully I can do some of the thinking for you. Also nail a few myths, especially with regard to PRINCE2, funnily enough, because there are many people in the Agile world who sort of hold up a crucifix whenever they see PRINCE2, and they presume that it represents all the worst things in life and waterfall and so on, which is a little bit unfair. So yeah, understand the benefits of both of the methods, and the benefits are quite similar. And then finally, at the end, we're hopefully going to give you a chance to hear about some of the courses we've made available in PRINCE2 Agile and in Agile PM, and give you the opportunity for questions. So the agenda, what we'll be covering then is some initial discussion of the Agile landscape. So, you know, what's out there, what is this whole Agile monster all about? And we'll see from that there's an awful lot of Agile that goes on that you couldn't necessarily describe as being project work, although it is certainly Agile work. And that leads to the second bullet point, is, you know, the fact that there is a need, there's a requirement for project delivery which uses Agile methods. Okay, and that's why this came about, and that's why there's two products, frankly, because this is quite a prize to achieve if you can. So we're going to talk about the two products, not in a huge amount of detail. You can get that information elsewhere. We're not going to break it down and summarise, what's going on in the guidance, but look at some of their similarities and differences. And it's the third to last point is what to choose. Now, again, you are going to have to do some thinking for yourself on this. We're going to put in your way a few considerations that you may need to think about, both as organisations and as individuals. And then give you those course details, and then, as we mentioned before, the opportunity for questions and answers. And I should say, get them coming now, as far as I'm concerned. As of now, you should be able to ask questions. So any questions, please let me have them. Okay, now, sorry, before we get on to the next slide, what I'd like to do now is do a bit of interaction with you all, and shortly I'm going to be handing over to my colleague Maria, who will be launching a poll for you to participate in. Now, before I do that, I just need to explain a little bit about the questions. So we're giving you 4 options here. The first one is, are you PRINCE2 qualified but not working with Agile, yet? Maybe you are going to, you're hoping to possibly in future, but at the minute you're working with PRINCE2 but not working there. Second one is, are you PRINCE2 qualified and indeed working with Agile in some way? So you might be working with Scrum teams or Kanban teams, or full on you could be leading up an Agile team but happen to be PRINCE2 qualified. And then the third one, working with Agile. So again, you could be Scrummy, developer type person, but you're not got anything to do with you're not PRINCE2 qualified at the moment. And then the last one is neither PRINCE2 qualified or working with Agile, but quite interested in this subject. Okay. So anyway, briefly, the sound of my voice is going to go away. Not a bad thing, probably some of you will say, whilst we do the poll. So I'm now going to hand over to Maria, who's going to have a look at, who's going to launch the poll for you. Okay, thanks very much, Maria. Well, that's a really interesting poll. Thank you so much for everybody participating. That was almost all of you participating, and we genuinely didn't know what the audience would be this time, and it's interesting to see that the vast majority seem to be PRINCE2 people who have yet to, dip their toe into the Agile pool. So that's quite interesting, and that helps me for the rest of this presentation in maybe how I can address things. And in fact, straight away, it guides me into this next slide, which is about the Agile Landscape, which I now realise the majority of you possibly, need a bit of help with. So let's just talk about that. Okay, so Agile is an umbrella term that includes behaviours, methodologies, habits of thought, culture, which have developed over the last 15 to 20 years, mainly in the kind of Anglo-Saxon world of sort of UK, America, also sort of North Europe to some extent. Some artifacts we could talk about. There was a famous piece of writing called the Agile Manifesto in 2001, which for many people is a sort of point of credo of the Agile faith, if you like, and people do sometimes refer to it as a bit of a religion. So Agile Manifesto, very brief piece of writing about what Agile is supposed to be all about. Scrum, probably the most popular single method connected with Agile, is what a lot of IT's developed in. Kanban as well. If you go to any Agile conferences, you'll see lots of talk of Scrum and Kanban, which is more of a workflow system. Then Lean Startup is a book written by a guy called Eric Ries, actually about starting up businesses rather than developing IT stuff. But some really powerful thoughts in there and ideas about how you can, try out products on an audience and then getting their feedback, use that to go on to develop the product further in an Agile way. And then XP is another one that stands for extreme programming, which involves things like pair programming and so on. So it's a way of developing code which incorporates some of the Agile ideas. Now, we could have carried this on. We could have talked about other things such as SAFe, Crystal methodology, DevOps, all sorts of other methodologies that have sprung up. There are dozens of them. Okay, what do they all have in common? Well, as you can see, most of them deal with software development. Now, that is not to say, folks, that Agile is only applicable to IT. Right? That's an important point. It's a point that the DSDM are quite fond of evangelizing about, and I fully support them in this. Right? So you can use Agile techniques, which are essentially human techniques, yeah, ways of humans' interaction with each other. You can use it to develop things like marketing material. You can use it to develop things like events, so you can do event management. I've even come across people using it for quite specialist production of components for in the steel industry. So, you know, I'm always challenging people who presume that they're not in the Agile world to maybe consider using Agile techniques. That said, you know, the fact of the matter is most people who stick their hands up and say, I'm an Agile person, are something to do with software development. Okay, anyway, just let's carry on. So the second point, very little design up front. So the idea is that in Agile, things emerge, yeah? So you don't like to have detailed specifications. You like to kind of develop on the fly, understand it on the fly with the customer. And as you can see, third bullet point, really important, loads of collaboration between developers and customers. Yeah, so much so that the customer, in inverted commas, actually sits inside the development team. Yeah, so you don't have this arm's length relationship between the customer and the supplier, effectively, where the customer says this is what I want, and the customer walks away, and then 6 months' time they come back and they say, have you given it me yet? And they usually find no, it's late, or if they do get something, it isn't exactly what they want, and that's exactly what Agile's there to help us with. So yeah, I've already talked about the fourth bullet. Things emerge as we go through iterative development. So the process of, you know, doing a bit of development, getting some feedback, having a conversation about it, doing a bit more development, getting some feedback from the collaborations with the customer. So minimal or informal documentation, that's reflecting the fact that in an Agile world, you know, sometimes formal reports and things like that are issued in favour of, you know, quite informal looking documentation, which often takes the form of something slapped up on a wall. Very often you've got large visual displays representing things like flows of product development and so on. Okay, frequent releases. Now, this again is quite an Agile idea, quite an important one, is that where possible we try to avoid the big bang project in which you have one big release that happens at the end in favour of one where, say, if you're developing a website, you start off just with a home page, and then you add another page, and then you add another page, and all the time you're getting feedback, but also hopefully getting some early delivery of benefits, getting much greater chance of delivering something that's what the market requires. So second to last bullet point, empowerment. Yeah, that's a very Agile term. We empower our development teams to make decisions. Yeah, so the healthy Agile development team is one that doesn't often escalate. Yeah, because it has the power to do that itself, so it can work more speedily, which, it has to be said, is a reason why some of the people in the Agile world view the whole notion of a project manager with some suspicion. Yeah, because they're quite suspicious of things like, you know, command and control style management. Then the last point is it's suited to the ongoing development of existing products. Now let me explain what I mean by that. If you think of some very famous websites that we all use, you know, they have been around for quite a while. They're probably going to be around for a few years yet. They will have Agile teams behind them which are continuously making improvements. Maybe there's a new release every couple of weeks, or maybe even more frequently. Now, they are they're making incremental improvements. They're doing everything in a very Agile way. They've got the collaboration going on. They're talking to the business about what their needs are, but they're just doing one little improvement at a time. Now, that is to be contrasted with the idea of a project, yeah, where, as we'll see in the next slide, a project is a finite piece of work. It's got a beginning, a middle, and an end, and then that's it. Yeah, so it's not about ongoing development of existing products. If you are in a situation where you have an ongoing website that needs periodic updates, Scrum and Kanban are absolutely brilliant for those, really good for those. However, they start to show some of their weaknesses where you have any kind of requirement for more formal project governance around them, especially at the beginning of the project. Now, the reason why Agile has become so popular is that there are some generally acknowledged benefits. So I've tried to list them here. So one of them is because of this thing about frequent delivery, you can get early realization of benefits. You're not waiting until the whole thing is ready. You can start to get, if it's a commercial product, you can start to earn revenue from it. Increase speed to market generally in a competitive world where you have to get things out quickly in response to your competitors. The quality of the products improve. This is an interesting thing. People who are maybe some of the people on this webinar, some of the people with the PRINCE2 background, may be slightly suspicious about the slightly anarchic nature of Agile, that do you end up delivering the right thing? However, the experience shows that because you have frequent iterations and feedback from the customers, quality generally improves with Agile. There's more of a chance of getting what you want delivered at the time that you need it. Risk reduction, so again, because you're delivering in several releases, it greatly reduces the risk of cost overruns, time overruns, and quality issues. So that goes straight to the next one. And then increased business or customer satisfaction, again, because we're so we build the feedback loops in so often, there's much greater chance of that. And then the last point, I think, shouldn't be neglected as well. For those people who have worked in an Agile way, it's a very stimulating way of working. You're getting frequent feedback on what you're producing. It's very much about collaborating in the team. So for people who have worked in inverted commas traditional ways as opposed to Agile ways, most of them that you talk to, remember the Agile experience much more fondly than the traditional one. Okay, so that's related to the slide that we just saw before about the general use of Agile, and don't forget, most of this then is about ongoing improvements, ongoing maintenance of existing products. Okay, so things like Google or Facebook or whatever, that you do see changes to it on an ongoing basis, and that will be developed using Agile methodologies. So that's so much for Agile. Let's just talk about project, because both of these methodologies we're going to talk about are about marrying Agile with project. So let's just talk about what we even mean by the word project. Now, I probably don't need to say this to all the PRINCE2 people, but just a reminder what the definition of a project is, and this is according to PRINCE2. It's this temporary organisation, yeah, that's a key point, yeah, it does have an end, it is finite, right? An organisation created for the purpose of delivering one or more business products, yeah, so you've got an essential output coming out of the project according to an agreed business case. Yes, so a business case is, of course, the way in which you justify even starting a project in the first place. Okay, so that's a good definition of a project. And I should mention with business case as well that part of what you should be doing on a project is you should continue to ask the question during the project, is it still justified as well? So some general characteristics of projects, so they usually introduce change, and you might say they introduce change in more of a quantum leap sense than the incremental changes that we talked about with usual Agile. Temporary, unique, so there must be something about a project that hasn't really been done before for it to really qualify as a project. That connects with the next one, which is that they're risky. We haven't done it before, so they tend to incur risk. And then to state the obvious, they cost money and they use resources, money which could be spent elsewhere in the organisation, and resources that could be used elsewhere. Okay, which is why they require justification. Okay, sometimes you can get slightly uncomfortable sounding conversations occurring between senior investment authorizing stakeholders in an organization where they're talking to a kind of classical Agile person, and they say, look, what are the benefits I'm going to get? How much is it going to cost? What roughly am I going to receive? and they might get replies about, well, you know, we don't know, we'll have to see what comes out in the wash, it'll all evolve, I'm sure it'll all turn out right on the night, you know, and that's not really good enough for an organisation which could otherwise spend its money elsewhere. And likewise, they do need to be governed, yeah, so some of the organisations, especially public sector, but also private sector, there could be various compliance regimes that the organisations have to comply with, so there's a need for some sort of control and monitoring. It doesn't have to be a completely document-driven monitoring. And then benefiting from a process framework, given that they're temporary, it's normally agreed it's a good thing in projects if you have some kind of starting up process that's understood by all the people affected, and then the middle process where you're doing the delivery, and of course the end, and then the final point is just a summary really, that they need some management. Yeah, so projects could, you know, there could be all sorts of external stuff going on, there could be other projects that you might collide with, there could be risks that you need to manage, there's stakeholders that need to be engaged, so there's a bunch of stuff that you wouldn't expect your developers in your empowered teams to really do, which need to happen on a project. Okay. So, so wouldn't it be nice, the old Beach Boys song, wouldn't it be nice to have this notion of an agile project, yeah, an agile project where we used the full benefit of all the famous agile techniques of collaboration, of iterative development, of frequent releases, got all of those benefits, but we put the project governance around it as well, you know, without sort of clipping the wings of the agile people. So if you did have such a project, I mean, what ought it to have? Well, it ought to have a business case. It ought to be able to justify itself. It ought to have a process model that everybody understands. Okay, and again, you know, that doesn't have to be completely stifling to everybody. But you need roles and responsibilities. It needs to be understood. What are the circumstances when the project manager has to come in, and what are the circumstances where the team get on with things, and maybe understanding some roles within the team as well. And it needs appropriate governance for the organisation, including those things, including some sort of transparency. You know, that organisations do need to see that, okay? And again, it doesn't have to be onerous, but usually you need some sort of governance, you need some sort of regular reporting, and indeed some process for escalation, and indeed stopping the project. You know, that has to happen sometimes. You need to understand those things before you set off on it. But it would be nice to have all the agile stuff, wouldn't it? So empowered teams, collaborative, iterative development, frequent releases of products, and, you know, full use of a whole panoply of agile techniques that we unfortunately don't have time to go into today, such as, you know, rich communication, daily stand-up meetings, Moscow prioritization, and all the rest of it. Now, the key thing, that the good piece of news is that both of the products we're talking about today, both of them do deliver all of that stuff. Yeah. So, you know, I'm happy to commend both products to you as you know, delivering this great prize to my mind, which is the project, which also harnesses agile delivery. Okay, so let's just talk a little bit about the first of those products, which is Agile PM. So Agile Project Management, Agile PM for short. Okay, so this product then it's developed by this organisation called the DSDM Consortium, right, which originally stands for the Dynamic Systems Development Methodology. They're a not-for-profit organisation. I am a member. I'm not being paid by them to say what I'm going to say, though, which is that they are actually a very good organisation. They put on all sorts of events, including the Agile Business Conference every October. Good opportunity to share practice across the industry, and they're basically there to share good practice. Okay, now this isn't the only set of guidance they have. They have an overall book called the Agile Project Management, sorry, the Agile Project Framework, from which Agile PM came, and from which other products came as well. So there's also Agile Business Analysis, Agile Program Management, and possibly that will be developed in the future. So Agile PM then, without going into the details, it does give you an out-of-the-box, self-contained framework for managing Agile projects. Yeah, it kind of tells you everything you need to know. Okay, it's been around for quite a while now. I can remember when the first version was launched in 2010. The current version, which changed quite significantly in response to a change to their overall project framework, the current version came on stream in 2014. Significantly, the manual's 240 pages long, more about page length in a second. And as we offer the course is 5 days and has no prerequisites. Yeah, you don't need any previous qualifications before you go on it. Details of the exams there's a foundation exam which is multiple choice, closed book, 40 minutes. Practitioner exam, also multiple choice, but based on a scenario, and it's open book, 2.5 hours. So those two sorts of exams will sound quite familiar to our PRINCE2 audience. Okay, similar kind of thing. Okay, the way we offer it in ILX is the foundation exam, though, actually only happens after the first day, and the practitioner exam is at the end. Okay, so that's just a little bit about Agile PM. So what about PRINCE2 Agile? So PRINCE2 Agile then is developed and owned not by the same people but by Axelos, okay, and Axelos, as I'm sure you're aware, they are the people who of course own PRINCE2. They don't only own PRINCE2 but they own a variety of other best practice products. So as such it comes as no surprise that PRINCE2 Agile of course integrates with PRINCE2 and MOR. MOR standing for Management of Risk. So those PRINCE2 is obviously mentioned throughout, like a stick of rock. MOR is also mentioned in the guidance. Okay, so you know and given that most of the products in the Axelos stable do integrate with each other, so this would integrate with further products such as managing successful programs and so on. Now, key thing. Notice the third bullet point. It describes how to adapt PRINCE2 to combine effectively with Agile, right? That's to be taken completely literally. So it assumes prior knowledge of PRINCE2. If you have that prior knowledge, how do you go about integrating with Agile? Okay, so we'll talk more about that in a second. But next one is agnostic about the methodology. So it can be used with Scrum, with Kanban. It talks about Lean Startup as well. In fact, it gives quite a bit of guidance on those actual methodologies. It's the new kid on the block. It was launched this year, 2015. Manual 342 pages long. Yeah, over 100 pages longer than Agile PM. Significant that. It's a 3-day course. It's not split. There's not a foundation or a practitioner. You merely talk about the exam. And really important point to take away, if you didn't know this already, second to last point, you need to be PRINCE2 practitioner qualified before doing PRINCE2 Agile. Okay. So anyway, the final point, the single exam, multiple choice, based on a scenario again, and it's open book again, and it's 2.5 hours long. Right, so I probably don't need to spend too much time talking about the next slide. It's just a reminder about PRINCE2 itself. So PRINCE2, of course, probably the most famous product in the Axelos stable. It's developed by Axelos, integrates with all of their other good practice. It provides a PM method that can apply to any project. Whether you're building a bridge, whether you're developing an IT system, whether you're putting on an event, any project, and as such, a feature of it is that the guts of the project are removed in PRINCE2, i.e. the actual building of the products, because it doesn't try to give you any guidance on that. Okay, there's just a skeletal process called managing product delivery, whatever that product might be. Now, it can be tailored for different project types, and probably the most neglected, and some might say the most useful chapter of the PRINCE2 manual is chapter 19, which is all about tailoring. Okay, so I'm always banging on about the tailoring chapter in PRINCE2 because people have a false impression of PRINCE2 that it is extremely prescriptive, and it just isn't. It's unfair. It's an unfair accusation. If you look at it, it can be eminently tailored. It gives you much more freedom than you might guess. So yeah, it doesn't specify specialist products. And the other thing about this is it's not necessarily waterfall. Yeah, so many people in the Agile community think PRINCE2 waterfall, and by waterfall we mean a project which goes through technical stages which can never be repeated. So going from the design stage to the build stage to the test to the UAT to the production or whatever. It does not say that anywhere in the manual that you have to do that. So as you can see, it's been around for donkey's years. The current version is 2009, extremely good manual. I think it's one of the best PPM manuals I've ever come across. 327 pages, Typically, course, if it's in the classroom, is 5 days long with 3 days foundation, 2 days practitioner. We also offer blended learning in ILX, so we find that people can mix and match how they do it and use an e-learning component as well. So you can see the details about the exams at the bottom, foundation and practitioner, also multiple choice, closed book and open book, respectively. Okay, so what do the two, back to our two, Godzilla, King Kong, what do they both have in common? Well, you can see what they both have in common there, but before we get onto that, I want you to take in this fact that the terminology may vary. I should really emphasize that. Yeah, there are non-trivial differences between the terminology. We use very different terms for roles in Agile PM compared to PRINCE2 Agile. We use very different terms for the stages or phases of a project. We use different terms for the products, or in other words, the documents that you use. Okay, so what I'm trying to say, if we were doing this and we were comparing PRINCE2 with APM, I wouldn't be saying that to you. Yeah, there's lots of commonality between those two, but in this case, we do have some, as I say, non-trivial differences. Having said that, each in its own way, they do offer similar sorts of things. They've got general guiding principles. In the case of PRINCE2 Agile, there's the existing PRINCE2 principles, but there's also some targets and Agile behaviours that are encouraged. They've got roles and responsibilities, which admittedly have different names to each other. They've got a process model. They've got control start, delivery in chunks, and PRINCE2 called them stages. Agile PM calls them iterations. Control closed, guidance on documentation, of different names. Also, in different ways, they both offer a service of assessing the suitability of an Agile approach in the first place to your project. Yeah, so PRINCE2 Agile has got something called an Agileometer. Agile PM has got something called a project approach questionnaire. They both have guidance on some of the more famous kind of standout Agile techniques, which are given in the second to last bullet point, including all of these colourful ideas like user stories, planning poker, Moscow prioritization. Again, Google those if you want some more understanding of those. And then, as you can see, some discussion of plans, risk, quality, and change. Okay, so what we're saying is there's significant amounts of project guidance and Agile guidance that you'd expect to see appears in both of these manuals, although it does use different terminologies in some cases. So what are the differences? Well, just to restate the point, PRINCE2 Agile is 342 pages long. Agile PM is only 240 pages. You could say that PRINCE2 Agile is 669 pages because it relies on you first having looked at PRINCE2. And prerequisite, so there is this prerequisite for Agile PM from a point of view, for PRINCE2 Agile from a point of view taking the course that you need to have first got PRINCE2 practitioner. That doesn't apply to Agile PM. Now, given that in the guidance we've got 100 more pages, there has to be some stuff that you do get in PRINCE2 Agile that you don't get in Agile PM, and that's shown in the third row, which is showing that there is significantly more detail on those Agile subjects mentioned. Yeah, so for example, the Agile Manifesto actually comes up in both, but the Agile Manifesto also, you can see the principles behind it in PRINCE2 Agile. It's got a whole chapter dedicated to the complete definitive guide to Scrum. Yeah, so if you knew nothing about Scrum, it's actually all in there. Agile PM, on the other hand, it can plug into Scrum. It doesn't really tell you what Scrum means, though. It's sort of saying, well, if you know how to do Scrum, you can integrate, but we're not going to teach you Scrum. Whereas PRINCE2 Agile is sort of offering that. Again, quite a bit of information about Kanban and those other things, lean startup, burn charts, brief mention of XP, safe and lean thinking, and also quite a bit on Agile contracts, which is a useful discussion. Now, is that throwaway content? No, I don't think it is. Okay. In fact, I would say that the PRINCE2 Agile manual is actually really good guidance for somebody who is completely new to the whole Agile thing. From the point of view of new readers start here, I think it's a really good treatment of Agile. And yeah, last point, yeah, we've mentioned depends on another book. However, whereas Agile PM is self-contained. Okay. I should say as well that, so PRINCE2 Agile, it's got 100 more one advantage, it's got 100 more pages than Agile PM, but one of its disadvantages is also that it's got 100 more pages compared to Agile PM. So, you could all PPM literature could end up being as long as you wanted it to. So sometimes there's, depending on circumstances, there's virtues in being brief. So what to choose? So again, as I mentioned, I'm not going to make your minds up for you, but just some considerations that you might have as an organisation. Maybe you're an organisation thinking of sort of jumping one way or another. So one of them is obviously, have you already adopted PRINCE2? Yeah. If you haven't already adopted PRINCE2, then you'd have to do that first before you went to PRINCE2 Agile. Do you already use Scrum? So Scrum is compatible with both. If you're at a situation where you want people to also get some learning in Scrum in the process, then PRINCE2 Agile offers that. Agile PM doesn't, but it's fully compatible with it. Do you use Kanban? Now, again, without explaining it, Kanban is a sort of progress flow control system, which doesn't necessarily involve the use of what Scrum calls sprints and what Agile PM would call time boxes. Now, Kanban can plug into PRINCE2 Agile. Strictly speaking, in its purest form, it's more challenging with Agile PM. Okay, so that's just something to share with you. And then the last bullet is, if you do want a simple, out-of-the-box, self-contained framework, maybe nobody has got many accreditations in your organisation, maybe that's when you want to use Agile PM. All right. So that's as an organisation thinking about methodologies that you want to implement. So as an individual, I don't know, want to further your career or whatever, Agile PM, there is growing recognition of Agile PM. The numbers taking the exams are increasing each year. There is anecdotal evidence that employers are starting to notice it and sometimes look for it on the CV. Just because it's been around for 5 years, when all these qualifications, when they're first introduced, of course, they take a little bit of time to gain traction, but we're now at the point where by the end of this year, we're expecting 20,000 people will have gone through Agile PM. So yeah, year on year, it continues to grow. On the other hand, what's the most common PPM qualification in the world? Well, it's PRINCE2, isn't it? So that we've yet to sort of understand whether that's going to have a bit of a cachet of itself, that PRINCE2 Agile. So the last 2 bullet points, if you do jump as an individual for Agile PM, just to repeat what I said, I really rate the PRINCE2 Agile guidance as a book to have on your shelf. So do consider educating yourself in PRINCE2 Agile. Likewise, if you're on the other side of the fence, PRINCE2 Agile, find out a little bit about the DSDM consortium, because that's a really good organisation that put on some interesting events that you might want to consider. Okay, so that's most of what I was wanting to cover, and now I think I'm going to be handing over to my colleague Ben Green, who's going to talk to you a little bit about the courses on offer at ILX, and then we'll hopefully have a chance to look at your questions and answers.
Joe, thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Can I just start by thanking Joe for his very brief but I think quite concise explanation of exactly the differences between PRINCE2 Agile and Agile Project Management. I know that there is still some confusion around exactly how they differentiate and exactly what we should be aiming to do when trying to identify which would be the correct methodology to follow, or at least to start to follow. I work as part of the corporate sales team here at ILX Group, and I've been asked to come in and actually explain the ways in which we can run through various qualifications throughout the PRINCE2 and PRINCE2 Agile, PRINCE2 and Agile Project Management methodologies. So we have a series of different options specifically around the courses I've just mentioned. So if we start with the PRINCE2 specifically, Now, PRINCE2 obviously being the most popular project management methodology worldwide, and we can study this in a variety of options, whether that be classroom, through our accredited e-learning, a blend of the two, and then obviously we have the two levels within PRINCE2 itself as well, so the foundation and the practitioner. Studying that in the classroom, the PRINCE2 foundation is a 3-day class, the PRINCE2 practitioner is a 2-day course, so it puts together, you get a 5-day out of it. We have classroom courses available all over the country, so you can see a couple on the screen there for you. So we have London, Leeds, Bracknell, Birmingham, Nantwich in Cheshire, and Bristol as well. The newest qualification that Joe has run through over the last 20 or 25 minutes or so is the PRINCE2 Agile course, which is actually a 3-day classroom course that we have at the moment. And you can see the price that it starts from on the screen there, so £1,095. All these prices exclude VAT as well. Classroom courses for that are available in London, Nantwich in Cheshire, and Bristol as well. And finally, not least, we have the Agile Project Management qualification as well. Now this has recently changed, which can be studied in 3 options that you have there. So the classroom, the e-learning, or the blended. We have the foundation level as an e-learning, accredited e-learning package, which can then be complemented with a 4-day now practitioner qualification from Agile Project Management. And again, UK courses are available in London and Nantwich. You will see in a minute on the next slide some contact details for myself and one of my colleagues as well. Now, my colleague that you'll see on the next slide, Nadia, handles our, or heads up our, oh, it's on the bottom of this one, my apologies. She handles the consumer sales team up here in our Nantwich office. So anyone that's willing to or is looking to understand a little bit more, or perhaps book in to take one of these qualifications as an individual, that's the email address to contact. So it's Nadia Yahia at ilxgroup.com. And as I mentioned at the start, part of the corporate sales team, we look at wider requirements and wider mapping of these methodologies throughout organizations. And if you would like to speak to anyone about that, then if you drop me an email at the bottom of the screen there, so ben.green@ilxgroup.com. And with that, I think we're going to move on to some question and answers with Joe. So I shall hand back over to him, and we'll get going with the questions.
Okay, yeah, thanks very much, Ben, for taking us through the course options there. So as of now, we don't really have any questions coming in so far, so now's your chance, folks. If you want to put in any chatty questions. We've had some feedback. Most of it was about my slightly blurry image earlier on, so apologies for that. Also, apologies for not being in the centre of the screen. I've just had some very agile style feedback whilst we went over to Ben. So yeah, so I'm now rooted in the spots, just like I should do. Okay, so yeah, so they don't seem. Oh no, we've got one coming in. Thank you very much. It's one from Graham saying both PRINCE2 and DSDM have great reputations. Would it be possible to use PRINCE2 with DSDM delivery approaches? Okay, that's an interesting one. The short answer is yes. Yeah, so PRINCE2. So yes, you sort of could plug in elements of DSDM into PRINCE2. And what's more, the PRINCE2 Agile guidance does explicitly mention DSDM. Yeah, so it mentions DSDM, but not the other way around, which is quite interesting. So yeah, so that's the short answer there. Right. So if you're new to PM, I'm guessing, what would you recommend? So if you're completely new to project management, you know, whether you're into Agile or not, you know, do have a conversation with one of our people. But if you just want a general starting in project management, it may be that PRINCE2 is something that you want to consider because it, you know, as I say, it doesn't restrict you to non-agile work. Right, are there any plans to having courses in Scotland? I'm not aware of plans at the moment, Henrik. Apologies for that. Do we have any classroom programs in the USA? Likewise, yeah, we're mainly UK based, but we'll always have a conversation with people if there's an organisation that wants us to maybe consider training, because we go all over the world. Right, PRINCE2 question. Can you take only PRINCE2 practitioner if you last passed 6 years ago? So my understanding is that you do have to be a current registered PRINCE2 practitioner holder, so which means that the 5-year rule applies. Yeah, okay. Right, so I'm sorry, I'm just reading at the moment. It's available online. Yeah, so as of now, we have got options for Agile PM being available online, is my understanding. So yeah, you can do an online option for that, or you can do blended. You can do foundation online, and then you can do practitioner in the classroom. Right, another one. Does one project management methodology lend itself more to one type of project management software? For example, MS Project. That's quite an interesting one, that is. MS Project, for those of you who haven't heard, MS stands for Microsoft, so it's a very commonly used scheduling tool, basically, which produces a Gantt chart. So I'm guessing most of you probably know what a Gantt chart is. Funnily enough, Agile approaches tend to eschew Gantt charts. So in a way, you know, if you're in a genuinely agile space, you may not even see Gantt charts. So yeah, I'll probably leave that at that for now. Can the exams be taken independently? Yes, they can. That's something we always try to aim for in ILX, that we realise that people have got different circumstances, so you can plug in, just do the foundation, come back later to do the practitioner. Absolutely. So PRINCE2 Agile Classroom. Oops, things are moving. Right, is the PRINCE2 Agile Classroom course as intense as PRINCE2 F&P 5-day course? There is a lot of information to cover. That's from Nicola. So yes, it will be quite. You know, you can see the statistics of how big the manual is. That there is quite a lot of information to go in there. Yeah, so as we always say to all of our delegates with all our courses, please do your pre-course before you come on the course. It will be a much more pleasant experience for you if you do so. So yeah, another question: how can I get hold of the PRINCE2 Agile? The PRINCE2 Agile manual? Well, in the first place, I would say, yeah, do have a conversation with us about that. You can also, I mean, Axelos, of course, are the people who publish it, so that might be another route for if that's all that you wanted was the PRINCE2 Agile manual. Right, Nasha asks, can you do PRINCE2 Agile with qualifications in PRINCE2 Foundation and PMP, please? Right, I'm with you. Right, yes, I'm sorry, Nasha, but it is stipulated you need to have PRINCE2 practitioner very explicitly. Okay. Is there a piece of software more suited to Agile, for example, that would handle burn down, burn up charts? I can't give you any detailed guidance on that, but suffice it to say that there's a huge amount of products out there that are designed to enable Agile working. Quite often to do with the fact that Agile teams, unfortunately, sometimes have to be split apart. We like people to be co-located where possible with Agile. Not always possible, so lots of products out there. Okay. Right, somebody's asked, does it mean I need to do my foundation if my practitioner has lapsed? That's not true. That's a general PRINCE2 point, by the way. PRINCE2 foundation qualification is a permanent qualification, but it's the practitioner side of it that lapses. So yeah, you don't need to do foundation again, you only need to do practitioner again. Right, okay, anyway, I'm told that we're running out of time now, so we've just about come up with the 45 minutes. Sorry about that very quick answer to some of your questions. Anyway, thank you very much for staying with us. I hope you found it helpful.